Hi people, we're in Cubase 14 here, and what I'm going to do is take you through one of the tracks from Night Tales 3, which is one of the final pieces of music, and this is a kind of classical piece that comes after quite a serious moment in the story. So we'll take a look at how this is constructed. I'm going to play it from the beginning. And just a note in terms of, the reason for that fade is because, as I said, there's a dramatic moment in the story. It's kind of like a time to reflect on what's been going on. And so it's deliberately kind of rising up into a kind of crescendo. So I'm going to backtrack a bit here. Let's take a look at this arpeggiation. So we're going to solo this. And this is an instance of Contact, and this is coming from the Contact Factory library. It's the orchestral collection, and it's a harp. Now what's happening with the harp is that it's running through this Cubase effect from Cubase 14. It's one of the new ones. I'm going to take it off, so it's called Shimmer. I'm going to bring this into the foreground. So I'm going to bypass this and have a listen to what it sounds like on its own. And it's rising up in volume with some automation. But as it gets to its loudest point, let me just bring this down, by the way, so you can see this. And it is running through an arpeggiator. Let me bring this up for you. It's a MIDI insert. So you can see here the Apache SX to create the rhythmic timing of those notes, and it sounds pretty bland on its own, so that's why I did the shimmer. So have a listen what it sounds like with running through that effect. It definitely becomes kind of like magical, and one of the reasons is because if you take a look over here at the settings, this sound is essentially creating a copy of itself at plus 12 semitones, so it's an octave higher. And this is a really nice contemporary reverb effect. And you can take the reverb tail and add pitch difference. So that's what's going on here. And it has a very, very unique sound to it. And I use this plugin a lot on the album. The entire album was put together with Cubase. So every single one of those tracks was Cubase 14. That's the arpeggiated harp, and you heard before that this was being backed up by some choir elements. So let me bring these in. The instrument used here is another Contact instrument, and I used the complete collection quite extensively on this album. This is called Choir Omnia, and that's a collection of alto voices. And then also I did another choir, a lower choir. And you can see these are panned in different positions as well. That's not necessarily how things sit on a stage with a real choir, but I just wanted to create an interesting stereo picture. So once again, this is another one. So those two work together. Let me bring them in together before I bring the ARP in again. And the quality of those voices is amazing. It sounds to me very realistic. So I think Native Instruments did a really good job with that. So we're into the next section. Actually, let me just bring that back so you can remind yourself with the harp on top. So this is clearly leading up to something. The automation is bringing the levels up and making things sound more dramatic. And by the way, the shimmer effect, you can see here that I've basically used the automation to increase the amount of the effect and then change it. And that's riding up and down all throughout the actual track itself, to create drama and interest. So we start off relatively dry, but we get wetter as time goes on with that harp. So what else do we have? Then we've got the main kind of musical section kicks in. There's some rhythmic elements, we'll come onto those soon. And the main chords. Let me show you these on Contact again. As I said, I used it really extensively. This is a string ensemble from the Contact Factory library. And the Contact Factory library is amazing. It's really, really good. There are two versions now because we've got the more recent Contact and we've got the older. So there are two libraries, both very, very good. So those strings are playing together and they're backed up by a cello. So it's got a kind of a different texture to it. I wanted it to feel like it had kind of an extra personality, and I'll just bring this one up here as well. This is from the Contact Factory Library 2, and this is a preset called Celli. I do love the sound of this thing, and you'll see that I'm modulating the dynamics along here over time. That's with automation, so that as the track builds, it's got this kind of sense of growing and complexity and richness over time. And I really did put some effort into this to try to make it sound like a real classical orchestra. It's not very easy, certainly for someone who doesn't have the expertise. I'm kind of blagging my way through this. It was all by kind of instinct and ear. So that's the cello coming in. And then what's also happening is at that point in time we have a high string. This is to add some extra drama, some tension. It's sustained. It's a very classic technique. This is another one of those factory libraries, as you can see here. So that's the Factory Library 2. Then I've got some stab strings. Just to show you here some of the programming, it's alternating to create a sense. You can see the velocity is lower on the second hit. That's to give it a sense as if the orchestra are playing those violins in that particular way. Let me bring some more of these elements in together so you can hear all of that. Oh, yeah, there's something else I need to introduce as well. So as I said, certain elements are kind of growing in intensity over time. Then we get to the point where those strings come in. There we go. And at this point in time, there is a very kind of dramatic element, really, that's coming from the brass. There's a brass section here, and I'll play this for you in isolation first. I love the kind of grimy raspiness there. Reminds me of the old kind of John Barry, James Bond stuff. So this is a brass ensemble. It's another one in the Contact collection, or it's in the complete bundle. So let's bring these back. I'll do this without the drums, and then we'll come onto the drums separately. So just before that section with the brass coming in. What you're hearing now is the kind of like a sustained ending chord, which is really just saying this is the end of the piece, and it's going to lead into what comes next, which is the final track of the album, Night Tales, a track called Resurrection. So let's take a look at the drums, and in some respect I cheated here, whereas everything else was played in, all programmed. This is a library in the complete bundle again. And this is very useful. It's a thing called action strikes. If ever you're looking for those kind of big cinematic percussive things, there's a whole bunch of very, very useful elements in here. So I'm going to solo these for you. So you hear that kind of, it's almost like it's percussive more so than kind of drums. I've got a couple of elements here. So that action strikes is playing in the background, but equally, the orchestral percussion I'm playing in on top. So the splashes, the rides, the crescendos, those kind of elements are coming from this particular instrument. but still in the background you can hear the action strikes, and it starts to become more complex as we head into that bigger, kind of richer section. And this was essentially two kind of loops that they offer. So they've got a whole load of kind of played by professionals selections of very kind of cinematic, percussive elements. So I'm playing two together at the same time there, and then leading on to another one. And these changes are through the different MIDI notes. So you can see that I've kind of played different MIDI notes to trigger different loops there. And let's just take a look at this, because you can see that there were a variety of different elements being triggered. So certain things being hit to create extra drama, triggers occurring at different points, really just to add to the whole thing. And so what we'll do is I will take solo off, take these mutes off, and I'll play from the beginning. I'll bring up the mixer. Yeah, it's reasonably complex, not too many elements. You know, some of these classical compositions can be very, very rich, lots and lots of elements, but this is relatively simple. But you can see how the automation is used on a number of these tracks to create kind of sonic variants across the duration. It's not a particularly long piece. It's designed as a kind of, it's like an ending. And that's pretty much what coda means, right? And if you do listen to the story, you know, this is really quite an emotive moment. You know, there's a very significant piece of drama that occurs before this. And, you know, it's designed to really just get people kind of contemplating what just happened. Because actually, it's really resonant because of the fact that we've had all of these other tracks beforehand telling the story, these characters. And so you've essentially got to know them across the duration. And then this really bad thing happens on the track prior to this. And then this kind of, I don't know, it kind of echoes the drama, the severity, the seriousness of all of that. So there we go. So yeah, it's called Coda. It's from Night Tales Volume 3. The other tracks are very, very different. But there's definitely a couple of other kind of classical elements on there. But that's probably the most classical piece. And done entirely in Cubase 14. And really pretty much Cubase 14 and also Native Instruments complete.